Hey everybody. Well, today we're going to go to Germany. And the locomotive that we're going to be looking at is this almost R2-D2-esque looking E18, which was eventually renamed the 118 series. I saw this a while ago and I just thought, wow, I don't know, there's a weird sort of utilitarian but strange elegance looking to it. I don't know how to describe it. I like it. It's used a lot in passenger service in Germany, and it was one of their first quote-unquote high-speed electric locomotives. They've produced this model in numerous forms before. It's not new. It's certainly very popular in Germany and in Europe, but I was just going to wait until they came out with a new one, and it looks like they finally did. So I went ahead and purchased it, and we are going to get to that today. So take care, hang in there, and we'll be back in just a moment. Alright everyone, today's episode is brought to you by Super Smooth Hobby Lubricants. Super Smooth Hobby Lubricants are 100% synthetic, and they come in medium oil versions, light oil, and PTFE or Teflon grease in this handy tube. These are very recent and modern formulations. The company that actually manufactures the oil and grease for Super Smooth is a very, very well-known company, and Super Smooth worked with their chemists to make sure that these would fulfill the needs of modern hobbyists. These formulas are specifically designed not to gum up, and they're designed also not to attract any kind of grease or dirt or dust. So remember Super Smooth. It's slicker than smooth. So the version we have is the Trix 22451, which is actually a Marklin 39683 that's been converted from Marklin 3-rail to DCC 2-rail. All three of the big manufacturers have been making this for a little while, but it looked like they had come out with at least something that, I don't know if it's a new tooling, but they were re-releasing this. And like I said, I've seen them for a while and I really like it, but the fact this came out in their steel blue was one I really wanted. I've seen ones that are kind of a more grayish color. Didn't quite like that as much for some reason, but this one I did. Let's take a look. It has a full suite of sounds and lights, including the headlights, which turn to red marker lights, relay operating sounds, and a bunch of what you would think would be kind of the standard sounds. Marklin isn't often super complete in their sounds, but they have the ones that I use most often. This one is set to Marklin Motorola 2 or MFX. That's what comes up as default, but it also works as a DCC in a Marklin Motorola model. And here it is. It's pretty hefty. And you can see underneath its Marklin roots because instead of having the grinder, they actually just bolted the pickups on to the bottom. So here we go. It is a die-cast model, pretty hefty. It has kind of their ring motor in it, which does have some benefits, but it's a little bit noisy. But frankly, they're also pretty robust. You can see it has brass gears here. So I don't know, kind of 50-50 on them. If they don't have a good sound pack to them, you can often hear the gear whine, which can be a little bit off-putting, a little bit annoying. But as you can see here, the die-cast is pretty detailed. I like it. Nice wipers. You can see down there that what should be the couplers and some of the MUs that's not particularly detailed like Rocco and Pico Expert, but I think they're good enough and they're practical. Here's a look at the sides and the trucks. And I don't know. Marklin's kind of strange. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're not always the most specific, I guess, is the best way to put it. But I think this one is pretty nice, and the die-cast makes it so that's a pretty hefty model. Also, you can see here they've done a good job of replicating the interior through the windows. Nice details on the stairs here. It's a nice anti-slip. So I like that. Overall, I like the way this model looks. Now, one thing that's of note is cab 2 is actually forward by default, not cab 1. So it'll be running backwards to what you think it should, but all you have to do is flip that around. Here you can see the paint and lettering is very detailed. So yeah, just remember it kind of goes backwards. And you can change that through the Marklin Central Station or use CV29. One flaw with this model made itself known to me pretty early on, and it has to do with usual issues with my unpowered points, and this thing just did not like them at all. I've got 2 that really matter, and it stopped both times. What's weird is if you reverse and I don't mean reverse direction, actually flip the locomotive around, it went through my points no problem. So it's time to kind of diagnose what was going on, and what I found was essentially this. You flip it over, and these 2 are not picking up any kind of electricity because they are the traction tires. This side of the locomotive, which now with me having it reversed is the engineer's side, every single wheel picks up electricity except for the traction tire wheel. On the conductor side, this wheel, and this wheel pick up electricity. The reason this happens in this Trix model is because this is converted from a Marklin branded model, and Marklin models use both rails for the return, and it has a center slider which picks up the electricity from the center rail. So in some ways, it doesn't matter which rail you pick up from, and that's why we see them using the same rail for the return here, but in a way that's not working when you convert it to DC. What they should have done is that's fine if they want to have one pickup from this side, but they should have had the other one pick up from the other side. Here's the E18 stopped on the tracks, right on the points. And if we walk around this just a little bit and then zoom in, we'll be able to analyze what's going on. All right, let's do that. We'll stop it. We'll zoom in. And here's what we have. This wheel is not picking up electricity, right? Neither is this one because we are on the conductor side. And what we find is that this wheel and this wheel are on top of the unpowered frog. This wheel here is the one with the traction tire on it. And actually the ones with the traction tire could transfer electricity, but they usually don't. So nominally, this is the only wheel that's picking up power. But the problem here is this is one of the driving wheels. And because of that, it's very rigid. So if the wheel on the engineer's side, on the opposite side, is doing something to lift it off of the track or something like that, or it's on a flaky or dirty part of the track, no electricity is going to get through. That's exactly what has happened here, and that's why we want to convert one of these leading wheels, one of these leading trucks, so that it's picking up power from the opposite side. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to unscrew the pilot assembly so that we can see what's going on. And what we find out is this thing is definitely true to its Marklin roots, and the pilot truck and the frame connect. And that's very typical for Marklin. It's a solid metal to metal connection. There's no wire here because the frame is responsible for what is normally the engineer's side pickup. What we need to do is to break this connection and take the electricity from the pilot truck and put it into the opposite side. So that's what we need to do, is break this connection. And the way we're going to do that is to first block off of this connection. And I'm just going to use electrical tape, and I'm going to cover up this side, and I'm actually going to cover up the other side. I don't have any fancier tapes or anything like that. And then what I'm going to do is solder a wire directly onto this contact point somewhere here, and I'm going to run the wire up into the body, and I'm going to join it with the other red lead that is going into the controller. And then last thing, I'm going to flip this wheel around so that it's picking up from the opposite side it currently picks up from. Me long to do that. It only took me about 10 minutes actually, and I felt so good about it and so confident. I invited a ton of my friends out to the bar to show them my progress, and well, let's just say it was a resounding success. This pretty simple fix overcame the Marklin to Trix conversion flaw, and Marklin, let me know where to send the invoice for this one. This should have been one you were able to figure out. Okie dokie, let me go ahead and run through the sounds for you.
This is going to be F1 main relay followed by F2 operating sounds.
Alright, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and figure out what kind of consist we're going to hook up to this. And what I decided was this very, very interesting consist that's been made by a few companies. The one I've chosen is made by Rivarossi, and it is the Blauer Enzian, which is the blue Enzian, which is a type of flower that is very common in certain parts of Germany. And you can actually purchase cultivars to grow in your garden or leave in your home. Since the large portion of my viewership is American, and I hope if you're American, you're still watching this just out of interest, you may think of Rivarossi as selling those sort of cheap, middle-of-the-line passenger cars that a lot of people start out with or a lot of people keep and modify. But actually in Europe, they make, I would say, higher quality products because I think they're forced to compete a little bit more in a different category. I think they're a little bit nicer because of that. Here's the decals that will go on to the Blauer Enzian. I'm not going to worry about it very much. And let's see what we've got in here. It looks like it's a used set, but not all of it's been used. What's in there? Nothing's in there. Great, super. All right, let's pull it out. And you are going to notice that this bears resemblance to another German train. That one that was used in express steam service, particularly during the Nazi rule. But actually, this one is made specifically for the Blauer Enzian. The other one that was attached to the steam engine was repainted and also used, but they made another train set, another consist that looks pretty much the same, but it has one more car. But here it is. As you can see, it uses 3-color plastic, which is very nice. This is the dining car, by the way, and yes, both sides are kind of observatories in that way. They don't have to Y the entire train. They could just simply disconnect the locomotive and pull it around to the other side, and the other side will be the rear observation car. So here we go. Nice diaphragms. There's a lot of foam starting to deteriorate, but again, at least minimum of 2-color plastic, which I think is a very nice touch. What I think some of the manufacturers, particularly Marklin, kind of missed the mark on this by only having 1-color plastic. Oh, it's actually 3-color. Very nice. Very nice looking set, I think. But yeah, this matches up, and in fact, the E18 was used initially in the service of the Blauer Enzian. Oops, gonna put this back. Here's another compartment car. Very, very nice. I think these will look very nice with figures in them. I don't have enough figures to place in right now, but if you notice, it also has the rotating skirting around the truck, which I think is a very nice touch. Very, very nice touch. So we'll get that one back in here. Go to the next one, I think, which is also a compartment car. I'm going to have to dust these off a little bit, but here we go. Yeah, and as you can see, they did produce higher quality models for the European market than we're generally used to seeing here in the States. Very nice. And now the actual rear observation car, which is what I'm going to use on the end of the train. Very nice lounge setup, and it even has silver tables. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this go around the track, and as soon as I get more figures, I'll be looking forward to seeing what they look like as well. One issue I had with this is actually I was going to originally get the Marklin model, but the company, and I've talked about it before, is sort of the Southwestern company that some people have actually already identified, and they never got my order in properly, so I had to go find the Trix model, and they're usually a little easier to find. But this, since I was going to get the Marklin model, this Blauer Enzian set is AC, so I have to replace the wheels. But the problem is the wheels I have that match the axle length are a little bit too high. They're 9.35 millimeter wheels instead of 8.8 millimeter wheels. And when I put them on there, they lifted up on the pilot truck, and the pilot wheel would no longer connect with the track. So what I had to do was I had to find some smaller wheels, and the smallest that I had lying around for DC were 9 millimeter wheels, but the axles were too long, but all I did was I took a Dremel tool and ground the axle shorter, and what do you know, that worked fine. Now, one of these days I'll get some 8.8 millimeter. I think that's 28-inch wheels, and we can find those. Okay, well, to wrap up, this isn't a particularly long review. I think if you're somebody who wants this E18, you know who you are, but it's a very flexible model. You can pull all sundry of trains with it, passenger, and I think they used it for freight also, but I was really looking forward to using it on this Blauer Enzian train. I think it's a very beautiful, very elegant train, and if you want to actually see these cars in person, you can do that. They still exist in Germany, but I think this E18 and this consist look just right together. It's a really beautiful combination, and I think it looks really wonderful rolling around the track. Other than the flaw that I fixed, I think the E18 is a very nice model. It's very hefty and it has large traction tires, so I'm not going to even bother to weigh it. It'll pull whatever you want to put behind it, especially if you're putting any kind of realistic or semi-realistic consist behind it. Even if you're only kind of a half-hearted lover of the Marklin motor, it's impossible to deny that they are extreme pullers, and you won't ever have to worry necessarily about broken dog bone drive shafts or anything like that. It's kind of quirky that cab 2 was forward, but as you can see here, I've put cab 1 forward, so it shouldn't be a problem. It's a very easy thing. Although you may be happy with cab 2 going forward, I don't know, it kind of hurts my OCD a little bit. Plus, anytime I put something on the track, I always put cab 1 forward, so it was just good for the sake of consistency. And look, the car cleaned up really nice, and one of these days I'll put a DCC decoder in it so that the lights will work also. I've put the inspiration for this consist on the track. You can see how much they resemble each other, but don't forget that this particular Blauer Enzian consist I have was purpose made for this train, although I guess theoretically somebody could make one that is a copy of the other consist as well, because they use that also. So I guess I've got both consists, but again, I think this looks really sharp looking running behind the E18. The sounds are pretty good. Actually, I don't have any complaints about them. I don't know if this is exactly how the E18 sounds. They have them running in Germany, so I could only assume that they recorded these off of the real 18. I don't know. But even if they didn't, it looks fine. It's an electric locomotive, so how much can you really do with that anyway? But everything's good. This is one of the better Marklin sounding locomotives I've had for a while. Certainly better than the Taurus, the Railjet Taurus and the Coke Taurus, which I thought were just sort of ick. So there you have it. Again, if you want this, you know who you are, and maybe you can decide whether you want to go out and buy it, although it has sold out in quite a few places, so if you're going to get one, you better get one quick. As usual, I'll get you a running session here in a second, and I really appreciate you being here. Thanks tons. Look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take care, happy model railroading, and if you want to help me out, if these help you out in any way, please like and comment, and if you really want to help me out, please subscribe. All right, take care. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.